All right, welcome everybody. For those of you just logging on, this is Tom Randall, and actually it's 3 o'clock, and I know your time's valuable, so I think we should go ahead and get started. Dennis, if you're ready to roll, which I'm sure you
Yeah,
are.
let's do it.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to this Integrity Short-Term Care Initiative webinar. This is Tom Randall from GoldenCare. I want to welcome you and welcome my good friend Dennis Reiner, who's my partner in crime on all these bad boys. He's been around the industry, and I've had the pleasure of working with him pretty much all my 27 years here at GoldenCare. So want to welcome you to this. And we have our product training webinars. We're right smack in the middle of our 48 webinars in 38 business days. And shouldn't say smack in the middle. I guess we're rounding it up, coming down the last couple of weeks of it. But we've had a nice pleasure working with you folks, and we've had the opportunity over the years to work with a lot of people in the senior field. And I always tell people this slide here we go through at the beginning, and we have it on a recording site. We'll show you in the webinar. And it's kind of a method or madness on why this short-term care or extended care initiative is so important, because of the fact that the baby boomers are out there, and there's so many of them that I will spend an extra minute today because it leads into what we're talking about today with the Medicaid Spenddown, because it is important that you guys understand that. And as a huge disclaimer, before I even let Dennis say hello practically, I just want to let you know, remember, this is a little bit deeper, and hopefully, we're going to make it simple for you and tell you just how easy it is. But we did figure if you're going to go out there and step out of your comfort zone and ask some of your clients about whether they have their extended care taken care of, you may come across somebody who says, I meant to ask you about that. I'm glad you asked. What is this whole partnership program, or what's the Medicaid Spenddown? Or, they might come up with a question. We just want you to have enough ammo to be dangerous. And again, we'll show you that we have a tool that can walk you through a Spenddown. But again, we haven't even put that tool on our site because of the fact that it's something that a lot of long-term care folks who are deep in the trenches in long-term care use that once in a while to talk about partnership programs and talk about the need for planning. But at the end of the day, for folks like you who maybe aren't just doing short-term care or long-term care or extended care in general, you don't have to worry about getting quite so deep into the weeds with your clients even. You can just understand what it is and understand just a little bit about how it works. And even our top agents out there, Dennis will tell you several times probably today, that we never want you to go in and just give, hardcore concrete answers on how their Spenddown will work for them, because it's a complex system that they have, and there's a lot of exceptions and a lot of other rules that we have to protect yourself as well. So you always tell your agents, you got to talk to, you talk to your financial advisor about exactly how it might affect you, but at least you'll understand how it works before we get off this short webinar today. And part of that lead in, Dennis, I'll just keep rolling on this part, is that the fact that we have a lot of gray hair in America. We always heard about the baby boomers. Every time we gave webinars and seminars years ago, Dennis and I knows we always talked about the year 2030. Boy, when that year comes, everybody's in trouble, because all those baby boomers are going to be knocking on the door, getting claims for extended care. And now we see 2030 used to seem like a lifetime away, and now it's right on top of us, isn't it? So we know this is kind of what we call a perfect storm. We're going to have people, you're going to hear more and more about it on the news in the coming years, and you're going to have more and more people ask you about it, or at least be super duper responsive when you bring it up. So that's the good news, because we know, especially with these short-term care plans with their easier claim triggers that we talk about on a lot of these webinars, 70% of the folks are going to require some type of care or get some value out of these products. And 90% of married couples will have at least one of them. And sometimes it can be really a dramatic event for them financially and emotionally. So we want to make sure we have something in place to help them. And unfortunately, across America, most people have just never had a real discussion about long-term care planning or extended care planning in general. So we want to help those folks out. The COVID just exacerbated the thing where people are afraid of those facilities and they want other options. And that's really why we're here today. And Dennis, I don't know if you want to give a little background. I mean, this slide is a lot of stats. And again, this is all stuff you don't have to memorize. You're not going to take this out and say, let me show you why we're talking today. But it does lead into our Medicaid Spenddown situation. And Dennis, I'll let you jump, and we'll jump back and forth in, but I want to make sure Dennis gets a chance to jump in and just talk a little bit about why these numbers really mean a lot today and why they'll mean more in the years to come.
Yeah, I mean, obviously America's, that first one in number A, you can just see just the size of the senior population, and the last of the baby boomers in that 7 year time that Tom talks about will turn 85, and the crazy thing is, if you want to summarize this, just think of it this way: that any form of a care event that someone has, short, long, doesn't really matter, it could potentially be the single biggest unplanned, unfunded, and in many cases unforeseen event that will actually happen, and really the one thing that could wipe these clients out. And why it's so important is because you know people today, uh, more often than not, are not going to find themselves with a just unexpectedly passing away. In many cases, the good news is medical science is such that people are staying alive longer. They're in some cases lingering longer. So, Tom, the reality is that you know the number of people, this I call it the silver tsunami, that's going to be upon us. It's and you know um, and people need to plan ahead, and it's overloading the system to the extent that the system, it's unsustainable. you know it's unsustainable when you start thinking about this unfunded liability of 100 trillion. And uh, and really, the government's going to have to pick and choose, and you'll see changes in rules probably in the future as a result of this, because even at this level that we're at right now, about half of all the care in this country is handled through Medicare or Medicaid, and the other half is handled between insurance, private pay, and people using their own resources. So it's a story that's only, and a concern that's only going to get bigger and bigger. And the good news for you today, when we start thinking about this, is that most people don't want to, go down this road and really impoverish themselves. They're willing to look at other solutions. And Tom, I know that we talk about the protection options that are available, to the clients as far as where they want to go. And you may have a final thought on this before we go further.
You bet. Yeah, and again, like I said, these numbers are just so you guys get the idea. And we've been talked about, these numbers really haven't changed. I mean, obviously the 54 million is from the last census, it's about 57 million now. And what we're trying to get the point across is that if you're sitting out in the legislation and you're trying to make deals and you're trying to figure out where to put dollars, that's what he's talking about. We talk about unfunded liabilities, is that we have kind of an entitlement mentality in America. And a lot of people, if they talk to their grandparents or their parents, they know that there's a lot of options for them out there. And they're saying, oh, well, my parents never had that big of bills. They didn't have to worry about it. Medicaid took care of them. They may call it Medicare, but they probably mean Medicaid. And that's what's happening now with COVID, especially. They shifted over even more of this funding down here from the federal, but the states usually take about a third of it plus. And of their overall budgets, on average, it's about a third of every state's budgets that go towards Medicaid. And when you look at it in the long run, the costs are going up, as we know, with inflation and everything else, and the income that these states are having is leveling off at 1 to 3%. So when you start looking at that, what this bottom line means is that the problem, especially with Medicaid, is 75% of that huge budget, which is going to hit $1 trillion by 2030, is, when they look at it, they're saying 75% of that use 30% of that budget. And that's just regular Medicaid, right? Our welfare system that uses Medicaid that the common Americans are using. And what we see here is 25%. The oldest Americans who are in those facilities are using 70% of that budget. And if you had to make a decision where we're going to go, the totally handicapped kids, or if you're going to look at the seniors, that's where they're going to pull back the purse strings and say, boy, I hope they took care of themselves. And there's been really deep discussions. And again, we don't use scare tactics at all with our clients. But you got to remember, back before Medicare came along and stuff, there were poorhouses in America, and it wasn't that many years ago. And you really look at it where in the future, as we get this huge growth of older adults and less people working and less family members there, it's going to be a little bit scary. And this facility up here, what this stat is, just kind of an interesting one. When you look at it, there's a lot of lot of nursing homes out in the industry right now, and they're certainly not empty. But lucky we're not selling nursing home insurance. When we get into sales, we talk about extended care, and we don't say we're selling you nursing home coverage. We're selling them coverage that might have nursing home coverage, but we're selling them opportunities to stay out of the nursing home, because the reason this stat is up here to say, if you look at the boomers growing right now, we'd have to build 2 nursing homes every single day that have 196 beds in them. And that would only cover 1 million extra beds by the year 2030. And look at that huge growth here. So it wouldn't even cover half of what we need out there on the facility side. Because if you follow current events at all, you're hearing about nursing homes closing down, right? We don't hear about new nursing homes going up as often. So we're seeing that we definitely have a need, and there's lots of protection options available out there, right? I mean, we have our traditional long-term care that we've talked about. This is where GoldenCare, obviously, we buttered our bread. We helped design that Mutual of Omaha. We're big sellers of NGL and Thrivent as well. And when Dennis and I started, there was 130 some companies out there selling long-term care, aging ourselves a little bit there, Dennis. But nowadays, in the brokerage independent market, there's literally very, very top heavy. There's probably 10 companies out there that write any long-term care to speak of. And those 3 you see on the screen just do a huge lion's share of the long-term care on the brokerage side. So we see that market is there, and it's always going to be there, and it's going to be strong for the fact that people do like to have very comprehensive coverage. But part of the shifting market we'll talk about is how now you just can't rely on long-term care on its own. And the hybrid link products are out there. There's a lot of good ones. We kind of use that generic hybrid/linked because there's a lot of different products out there that are available for people as far as having life insurance or an annuity that has a long-term care or chronic illness rider with it. And we're not going to go into a lot of time on that, but today and explain the differences, but there's a lot of good options for people out there. But again, the underwriting is different for those too, and they're not going to be able to give you as wide of a spread as what we can do with some of these extended care and short-term care products that we have in our initiative. Then that brought up the comprehensive short-term care. We have the comprehensive short-term care out there from Manhattan, the Omniflex plan you're well aware of from our training, Wellaby's Essential Care Plus, or the Essential Care, which is the same product with different opportunities based on underwriting. And then we have the GTL Recover Cash. And then there's also Aetna Recovery Care that I threw in there just because you'll probably hear that name out there. We don't have that in our Integrity Short-Term Care. We, of course, have it available, but we don't offer that as part of this training because it's just another big product that you'll hear about out there that our other products certainly cover the things that Aetna has as well. And then the home health care only plans, of course, are part of our initiative, the GTL Home Health Care Manhattan. And then we have our True Freedom Home Care Plan, which is a non-insurance product. So again, Dennis, you can talk a little bit more of that, and then we'll move into what this Medicaid spending is about, and we'll show the calculator, et cetera. If you have anything to add, you should jump in.
Well, I think, Tom, the main thing is that there's options, and there's options based on state availability, based on insurability, and obviously we're trying to we'll get into the calculator, we'll get into some of the requirements of what goes into someone qualifying for in most states, all states except for California, where it would be Medicaid, and in California it's referred to as Medi-Cal. But it's the reality is that people who are closer to the level of the spend down could be more motivated to look on assistance. The higher you are up in the threshold of how well your client has done, then it's less likely that they want to be in a situation to meet those particular requirements. And we can talk a little bit about that in terms of how the spend down works. I don't know, Tom, if you're going to jump into if you want to go through a couple other visuals, or you want to jump into a quick example.
Yeah, we're going to go into the solutions and some of the reasons about what the partnership program is, et cetera. But just to give an idea, this is something that if you've been in long-term care, you'll be real familiar with the Medicaid Spenddown. And basically what it is, we have a tool available. And again, this is 100%. If you're not in the trenches for long-term care and extended care, and it's kind of your main thing you're rolling up the sleeves and doing, we tell you that we don't even have this on the site because we don't want to make it look like it's so confusing that you have to explain what this is to your clients. So like I said in my introduction, this tool is literally just for you guys to real quick get a bird's eye view from it and see just on a simple example what Medicaid Spenddown is and the partnership, how that can help. So here's John and Mary. And again, you're not going to need this tool. If you want it, we can probably make it available for you, but most of you won't need it. In this example, you'd fill in all these differences, their primary resident and any net worth that they have. Otherwise, you'd fill that in, what state they're in, and then their ages, and then their client monthly income and spousal monthly income. Okay, I just have some default values in there. I didn't put a partnership policy maximum in there because I want to explain what it is first. So basically, if we go from there with John and Mary, and we look first at the asset spend down, basically what this will do, and it's limited amount here because it gives me the ability just to zoom to this level. So hopefully you can see that well enough. They basically, I'm going to see if this works. Nope. So basically, if you can see here, it basically says John and Mary, their total of all their assets is 900,000 based on what I put into the thing. It does talk about some exclusions. And again, remember I said you would never get into the weeds. Even our long-term care people, we say this is just a bird's eye view of things they need to think about because their financial advisor or somebody might have some exceptions and everything else. But in this case, for the state of Iowa in 2023, their countable assets are 400,000 because they don't have to count the house if one of the spouses is living in the house. Then they take those 400,000 and they basically say, or the non-countable assets 400,000. That was a house, my mistake. So the difference is 500,000 down here. And then they basically, the way the partnership works in a bird's eye view is they split that. Iowa says 250,000 for each, and then they look down and say, okay, if John were going to go into the facility in right now this year in Iowa, John would be able to keep $2,000 and the spouse would be able to keep up to $148,000. So basically you can see here a pretty extreme example on the basic spend down, and there's Miller trusts and Medicaid planning and all that fun stuff out there that somebody found a way to go out and beat this system if they need to for a limited time anyway. But at the end of the day, the true law at its basic amount says you'd have a 349,000 asset spend down that you'd have to use before you could qualify for Medicaid. Okay, so that's pretty extreme. And again, I don't think we need to go deeper on that. If I go back to the calculator, the income is a whole different deal, right? If I look at the married income calculation, it's going to be a little delayed here because we're on a webinar. There we go. Hopefully you can see that. And again, this looks really confusing, and I just want you to know what it is. Medicaid calculation for Iowa, every state might have a little bit difference. I put in their assets or their income at $6,000 and $2,000 for Mary at $2,000, just to keep our numbers simple. Iowa has a $3,716 minimum spousal allowance. So they would have Mary be able to use $1,716 of John's. So she'd be up to the $3,715 income. And then John, out of his $6,000, he only gets to keep $50 in Iowa if he goes into a facility and needs Medicaid. So in this example, you'd see that John's going to spend down $4,234 of his income. So $50 he gets to keep, and Mary gets to keep that $3,715. They each get to keep their own income, but in this case, she was at $2,000 only, so she got a little bump from John. So there he basically begs the question. If you were in the long-term care trenches and you were really working hard about using partnership protection, you'd be able to show that, Mary, that's going to take a little bit of hit going from your $8,000 that you guys had together to trying to live off that $3,715. So needless to say, Medicaid spend down can look very dramatic. And what a partnership did is basically said, if I sold you a true long-term care plan and I sold you a policy that had, let's say, a $300,000 maximum benefit on it, all that does is just changes this dramatically. So this was a great sales tool to talk about partnership, because what states did is they said, we're going to allow you to have your partnership jump in and protect assets up to the dollar per dollar, whatever you purchase for a partnership protected long-term care plan. again, this is way outside the realm what you guys need to know about what you're doing. I just wanted you to have the education to know what we were talking about. So in this case, you'd see, instead of having to spend down all those assets I showed you before, 348,000, 349,000, now he would only have to spend down 49,000 if he bought that long-term care plan. So really some nice differences to it. On the income side, again, you're still going to have the same income situation because you're sitting in a long-term care situation. So I know that's drinking out of a fire hose, and I know that seems like a lot to digest. You don't have to worry too deep about it. You just have to understand that, yeah, if I buy traditional long-term care, that's something that is available with some of these plans. And what we found, because of this next slide, is that you really don't need to know as much about it. When it first came out with partnership years ago, and again, aging ourselves, it was kind of a major deal where people were like, wow, that's a huge plus for long-term care and for protecting yourselves. But then we realized long-term care made it difficult because they had certain parameters on there that people still couldn't afford the policies, or people couldn't qualify health-wise, et cetera. So they did a lot of great things with it, but we want to make sure you guys understand that it isn't the panacea they thought it was going to be. At the end of the day, you can get a little nice extended care policy, and for a lot of your clients, they'll never have to go on Medicaid because of planning for literally as much as just a 1 or 2 year policy a lot of times. So that being said, it leads into our extent of our final part of this conversation today. And Dennis, you can talk a little bit more about partnership if you think we need to, but at the end of the day, we can talk about the reality of what's going on with our shifting market if you'd like.
Yeah, I think the complexity of the Medicaid planning, and we gave you kind of a word of caution on the front end, which is, get with an elder law attorney who specializes in this area, because they're the ones who would have the liability if someone does not qualify or does qualify. And the last thing you want to do is be dispensing information. You want to be involved in the solution side of it for sure, but when it gets into the weeds here, especially when you're talking about both sides of the qualifying, a lot of times agents who don't know what they're doing will go in and say, "Oh, well, I've helped you to, move some of your assets. Therefore, I've reduced your exposure." But Medicaid planning has both of those components that Tom talked about: the income side and the asset side. And there's different rules and different levels of limits if it's a single individual versus that community spouse resource allowance that Tom just showed you, on how you can basically cut it in half, and how you're able to help the one spouse. And remember, at the end of the day, you're not talking about both people who are looking to spend down, but they are to some degree surgically attached at the hip if you're talking to couples. And those who do enough of this business like to refer to the spouse that needs the help as the cared for spouse, and the spouse who's sitting on the outside who doesn't need the help, they like to refer to that spouse as the impoverished spouse. And the reason why they're impoverished is for the exact reasons Tom just illustrated in that case study, because you're seeing what you have to do in order to make sure that individual who basically is the one receiving care, it does affect in different ways both parties. And the shifting market is why today it's easier. Yes, the long-term care side of it, in theory, did a lot to help on the asset side of that equation that Tom showed, but it didn't take away the income qualification. So remember, it was like splitting the baby in half. The reality is today, planning ahead, being prepared, and not letting people treat this as normally, it falls into our normal objection webinar, just like Medicare will take care of me, or, hey, I don't really care, the government's going to take care of me. And these are sometimes knee-jerk reactions that people have just because they're opposed to reaching into their pocket and planning ahead with some form of a paid-for solution. So the shifting of the market, though, has made it, to Tom's point a little earlier, has made these extended care plans, they're more affordable, they're easier to get. A lot of times when people are in this mix of thinking about this Medicaid planning, maybe their health has changed, and maybe they're not as eligible for some of those other more robust solutions that would be available, and yet there is great robust solutions that are available in the extended care market. And there's also a way to go down from a budget standpoint and meet their requirements based on finding where affordability lives. Where does it live? Is it living at $100 a month per person? Is it $50 a month? Is it $350 a month? So with products today that are so consumer friendly, that have less underwriting, have less of a complication feel to them, and they're less costly. We talked about this a little earlier today in a self-insuring webinar about the balance act between logic and emotion. The emotional side of these people, when they start thinking about the government will take care of me, it's just an emotional reaction. The logic side is when you actually do the math and figure out it's a little bit of a you're in the elevator, okay, you're in a 10-story building, and it takes a while to get from the 10 stories down to ground floor. That's the person in the 10 stories, as Tom illustrated, that has got some assets. If you're sitting on the first floor and you get to the lobby level, or I'm sorry, to get if you're on the second floor and you get to the first floor lobby level, you may not have to spend much, and it's just because your circumstances. And we're not saying that this is not an appropriate strategy for people who really need to have government assistance. I mean, the reality is that's what these safety net programs are there for. They're not necessarily there for those who are just trying to manipulate the system. And unfortunately, there's a lot of that goes in. And Tom talked about the different states and the different forms of planning and the different ways people can go in and try to do things. And I don't think you want to, you want to have enough information. And again, we've got different people with different skill set levels on these webinars. All we're trying to do is give you just kind of cover the planning subject in general. And we threw this webinar in to that discussion because we know it's an objection that people do get, and you should just be more prepared where you can talk more intelligently about the pitfalls of thinking that the government is going to take care of someone. And whether you go to that calculator, as Tom said, and we make that available, or if you're just able to talk it through, I think is important. And really, when we start looking at claims, and Tom, we can maybe pick up on the claim side, and then maybe have a couple final comments to wrap it up on, in terms of when we start looking at, I know we always like to cover our availability in terms of states, and we like to talk about, the marketplace. But, this is a really good statistic here. If you start looking at, the idea of getting people, again, some coverage, and everyone wants to age in place. I mean, that's the whole reality of where people want to start. And there is a progression of care that could require, as you can see, those percentages, but you can see again the amount of people that just need some care. Tom said, by putting even a smallest plan in place, you could probably prevent that spend down from even occurring, where people would have to, not have to go through all these different gyrations, just trying to, again, qualify for Medicaid, when very affordably you can put a plan in place that's going to do a great job for them.
Right. And I can't stress enough the big thing about this. There's not a lot of good major studies out there on extended care, non-long-term care plans. Long-term care, remember, was around first, and then these shorter-term care plans came out, like the comprehensive short-term care and the home health care plans. So this data, which is kind of enlightening in general, when you look at this, saying this is long-term care services that people get that are paid and unpaid. So you can see here, less than a year, 42%, and the any care at home for 2 years, 65%. And then when you go into facilities, but notice what our point here is, most people are using shorter claims. And this is long-term care type services. When you get into the short-term care, that's a huge difference, even more so, because remember, with no 90-day certification requirement like we have with true traditional long-term care plans and those hybrid plans, with those type of true 7702B long-term care coverage, they say you have to need help with 2 of 6 ADLs or have cognitive impairment. But the 2 of 6 ADL says you need it for at least 90 days. You have to have a doctor certify that. So one of the things you've heard us say several times on our other trainings is that these short-term care and home health care policies say you just need to have help with 2 of 6 ADLs, but there's no 90-day certification. So things like knee replacements and bypass surgery and hip replacements, motor vehicle accidents, or just falls in the house that you have broken bones, etc. A lot of times those, they say, well, you're not going to need help with bathing and dressing for an extended period of time. You might just need help for maybe a couple months or a month. With this one, you don't have the 90 days, so you can have coverage right away in the form of indemnity benefits. So that's one of the things we always stress, is that those numbers you saw on the previous screen would be even smaller claims. And that's a good thing. When you're selling somebody protection like this, remember, when they're paying in premium dollars, everybody loves you when it's claim time, right? I mean, then they're really glad you had a chance to talk to them. Even if it's not going to be a life-changing event for them, they still like the fact that I paid premiums in and I'm getting benefits out. They like that fact in general. But more importantly, if they do have something more major, because of the way these policies are set up with restoration of benefits, et cetera, remember, they're always loading you up, waiting to keep as many benefits as possible with restoration, so that if you do have a bigger claim down the line, you can have it restored and you can end up with having a pretty robust policy. Because that's another thing we always talk about. Short-term care is not the best name for these things, because of the fact that we like to have the possibility of saying, hey, we can build really robust plans with this if you want to. They're very flexible. You can build smaller plans, but you can build really strong plans. And some people who are out there used to long-term care, and they're saying, yeah, but it's not quite like those good old long-term care policies that paid for 5 or 6 years. Trust me, we've been doing this a long time. We've seen the data. Most claims aren't 4 or 5 or 6 years, and you can usually keep people off Medicaid for a long time, even if you just provide limited coverage for a year or two. And 3 out of 5 bankruptcies, 60% in America for individuals, are caused by unforeseen medical costs. And that is something these short-term care plans do extremely well to help people with, for those things that they just weren't expecting, and they get that extra cash. They can keep them out of that bankruptcy situation. So, you know what I'm going to say next, Dennis, is that whether your nest egg's 500,000, 50,000, wherever it might be, 25,000, you know what? It's still their nest egg. And these little plans can do a terrific, terrific job of making people feel like, hey, for a small amount of premium, I had some extra protection to protect that nest egg. So we have stacking. We won't spend a lot of time with this, just probably finish up with showing the site, Dennis. But this is just another way to say, if you're fearing that, okay, if they have a little bit of worry about their nest egg protection, remember, you can stack these plans too and give them even more bang for their buck. Even if you're not in the traditional or the hybrid market, you can do some great things. Go to our stacking webinar. You can take one of these Omniflex or GTL or Wellbe plans, and you can stack on another home healthcare plan on it and give them some really nice protection, especially at home where they want to be anyway. So, Dennis, you can add anything you want to that. And otherwise,
yeah, Tom, I was just going to say, back to your previous slide, when we, part of the motivation is that people, one of the reasons why long-term care is perceived to be a negative by a lot of consumers is because they think of it only as facility. I'm going to this facility. And back to the idea of these different conditions, not to get too technical on the group that's on the call here, but these are acute conditions. And acute means that you basically expect to recover. And what Tom is indicating is that people would not argue with you about the idea of a bypass surgery or a hip replacement. They just think it's normal, everyday wear and tear, and yet they can get money out of these policies. The reason why so many of them over the years were opposed to the idea of thinking about long-term care is they don't see themselves with those chronic conditions, those conditions that are going to cause them to linger for a long period of time. So remember, when you're positioning that story and you're talking on the next visual, when Tom was talking about the landscape, there is affordability that exists. We shared in that stacking webinar some amazing, I mean, ridiculous affordability as far as in how people can get money back through the prescription drug reimbursement. It doesn't have to be, that you're maxing out and buying the most robust plans. Again, having some coverage is better than having no coverage. And in most cases, state availability wise, we have the ability to help you and have a solution in all 50 states. We had the good fortune of being with the folks at Manhattan Life the last couple of days. Tom and I did, and not updated on this map yet, but Oregon just came out, is actually live on the platform, the 33rd state. Rhode Island is approved. It'll be live probably in the next week or so. We'll be at 34 states with Omni. We're at 37 with GTL. Wallabies at 10 because they just came out of the chute at end of August. And the home care is about the same lineup, but the gray states that in the previous visual and the purple states here are where that True Freedom product plays, where we got coverage in all 50 states. And so, keep in mind, and there's other solutions that we have that if you bump into situations and you really are going back to your marketer, but, and we're trying to be a resource to your marketer, we're here to help you to survey the marketplace, to find things. The site that we have that's available is a site that basically gives you, it's a one-stop shop. Tom, everything's there, right?
Yep, absolutely. And again, most of you have been on this call before, so I'll do this super fast, but go to integritysgc.com, talk to your network, the marketer, who got you on this call if you need additional help, but everything you need is right here. Here's all the products that we have available for the Integrity Short-Term Care Initiative as of now. We just showed you some of those maps, but there's state availability on every one of these. If you click on it, it'll show you exactly where it's available and give you more support tools having to do with those particular products. And we have webinars on all of those as well. If you go over to the sales and marketing, you guys have heard me give this song and dance before, but if you're a newcomer, and I see a couple names that might be new, stats that we talk about a lot when it comes to extended care. And then if you come down here, everything you need to know. We don't toss you out of that plane without that parachute, right? So all the sales and training webinars, if you click on the view, the full showcase, it'll take a second because we're on a webinar, but it'll open up all those different webinars that we've had, and they'll fill in here as it catches up on the bandwidth. But all the super sticky solutions, God groups, home health care only plans, you can see there we're up to, what are we, 52 now, 5 pages, different full-length videos here of all those different webinars that we've given you. So anything you need training on is there, including Dennis has some really strong fireside chats and sales strategy webinars right down here. And then back up, this is all in the sales area. You can see here's some fast facts that'll, if I click on that, it would show you a list of different videos about some product highlights. And then the InstaPivot tool that'll tell you where to get that and how nice of a tool that is. And then we have, if you're recruiting agents, on agent assets and consumer assets as well, we have a packet. And again, this is a living, breathing site that'll get better and better as we add more things. And you're going to see on the slide that I go to next, we want you to take the next step. It is up to you. If you're not already appointed, all you have to do is go to the site even. You don't even have to go back to your networker or your marketer. I keep saying networker. Back to your marketer, because if you click on here, you can go and it'll just ask for your name and your email and a phone number, and then your upline integrity partner. And then you can click, we usually say go for all the products, and then you can click on that. And what we'll do is we have a unique fields from which marketer invited you to this webinar. So we'll track down whoever got you involved here, and we'll make sure you get appointed in the right hierarchy, and everything will be clean and quick as a whistle. So we're glad to have all that available for you, just to make life easy, because it really does come down to everything we do and everything we talk about with you folks. It comes down to the fact that you have to take the next step yourself. You have to go and say, you know what, I can really help some of my clients. More importantly, it's a win for you. If you're in selling Medicare or you're selling final expense, guess what? we know this isn't a hobby, so you're going to have some tremendous potentials on the commission and renewal commission side for yourself by helping people, but you're also going to keep your persistency up. If you get an extra product in line with your existing product line, that's big win for you next year when people are trying to come out and replace your Medicare product, for example. You don't have to worry about it as much, and you become more of a trusted advocate for your clients by offering something else besides what you're coming out with day in, day out. So there's lots of good things. We could talk quite a bit about that, but I do want you to know it's really simple to do. If you're new to this webinar series, go and check out our sales webinars, or look for the next invitation to a sales webinar, and we'll show you just how easy it is to start the conversation. And trust me, you don't have to. I know I see a couple names on there from some long-term care veterans today, and you don't have to learn about Medicaid Spenddown and learn how to explain it to somebody and explain partnership plans. We just wanted you to know they're out there, and you'd know more than your clients do just from the little we taught you today, believe it or not. So it's really simple. You don't have to know everything. You just have to know where to get the answers, and that's what we're here for. So Dennis, I'll let you close it up, and I appreciate your knowledge today as well.
I mean, yeah, we have given you a lot of information, and some of it is, giving you something that you can go back to and refer to. But if we can just summarize the whole aspect of why planning ahead and helping that client to be better prepared for the what ifs that could happen, it really comes down to what we like to call the 3 C's. It comes down to, if they're going to think that they're going to spend down, then basically they're going to give up the 3 C's. Number 1 is they're going to give up control. Number 2, they're going to give up choice, which means the government's going to dictate where they get care and the bed availability. And we won't get into the difference between the quality of care and what does exist and what doesn't exist. And 3rd C is they have to give up their cash. And we illustrated that through the case studies that Tom walked you through. So that's a very simple, and you're having that conversation with that client where if you just talk to them again and balance it between the logical side of things and the emotional side of things, because the first reaction to the emotion is, well, hey, I don't want to do anything. I'll just let the government take care of me. But when you start talking about those 3 C's, it begins to make sense. And so, as Tom says, take the next step and join us again for another webinar. And we hope that you found this one to be a little bit different than some of the other product specific and some of the other conceptual training that we've done, because this is basically trying to help you also eliminate this objection that will pop up about, I'm going to let the government take care of me. So thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, thanks. Somebody typed in about they had to jump in late, and I did type a response there really quickly. But yeah, you definitely will have this recorded unless something weird happens. But we do have a recording of it that should be on that site, that Integrity STC site. Usually they get it up there, if not, probably not by the end of today, but by tomorrow sometime it'll probably pop up there. So,
and there's a previous one on this Medicaid webinar that's already up there, and sometimes we do say things that are a little bit different here and there, and so you could you'll have an opportunity to hear this one as soon as it gets posted. So,
thanks again, everybody. Appreciate all you do. Thanks for joining us today, and hope to see you soon on another webinar. Appreciate all you do.
The next step is yours. Contact your marketer for more information and to start offering short-term care solutions to your clients. And be sure to sign up for our other short-term care hot topic webinars.